YouTube channel. I'm Juliana, and today we have a very special guest, my husband Chuck.
Hello.
And we wanted to create a video about how we manage our long distance because we have been together 8 years,
Going
right?
on 8.
Going on 8 years, and like half of that, right? Half of that has been long distance.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So like almost 4 years of it has been long distance. And so we get questions all the time. You know, how have you guys managed to do this long distance? I get DMs about it on Instagram. So we thought that we would share our top tips that maybe some of y'all can use for how we manage long distance. And so that's kind of what inspired today's video. So if you're interested in learning how to handle long distance or tips that we've used, then keep on watching. And before we begin this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I will release one new video every single week, and I would love to have you as part of the community. Let's dive into this video.
So we met at West Point when I was a senior and Juliana was a junior.
Yep.
And so we got to spend that year together, but then after I graduated, it was all long distance. So we definitely had some growing pains.
Yeah,
during that time.
it wasn't easy at first.
No.
Long distance. We had to kind of like adjust to it. When we were so we knew like we were really great together in person, obviously, and then kind of figuring out what that long distance relationship definitely had some like ups and downs that first year that we were dealing with it. And I think the one thing that really helped us was taking that love language test. And I think there's 5 different love languages. Don't ask me to like list them off the top of my head because I completely forget, but like a few of them are acts of kindness, words of affirmation, gift giving, physical touch, and I feel like there's one more that I'm missing. We figured out that my love language is words of affirmation, and your love language is what?
Acts of kindness.
Acts of kindness. So once we kind of figured that out, it was a lot easier for us to have a long distance relationship, especially when both of us were in the military, and we obviously had to deal with a lot of that. We've done a few years of it. We figured out that I need like text messages that are filled with words of affirmation, and you like to have acts of kindness, whether that be doing something for the relationship or like, you know, further along in our relationship when we moved in together, like helping clean the house or something of that effect, or making dinner. That was his love language. So that is tip number 1 for you guys, is know what each other's love language is, and then through the years, like the longer you spend, go back and retake the quiz because sometimes your love language can change. Tip number 2 is, do you want to elaborate?
Communicate regularly.
Yes. So, do you want to explain what that is?
Yep. So each time we have done long distance, our schedules have been different, but each time we've found like our rhythm for when we communicate. So when Juliana was deployed, we would talk. It was night for me, but morning for her. But other times it's been late afternoon or kind of later at night. But whatever it has been, we've found that over the first, I'd say, like few days, and then we've
kind of stuck with it. And I would rearrange my schedule, or you would try and rearrange your schedule to make sure that we were available at that exact time, so we kind of knew when to anticipate and also look forward to talking to one another. And then tip number 3 is what?
Communicate creatively.
Yes. So we have had to get really creative over the years, depending on our situation. And so a few examples that I kind of wanted to touch on was when Chuck was at Ranger School, which is like a military training school. We had 0 communication. So like Chuck didn't have a cell phone, he didn't have access to a phone, and that was for what, 3 months?
2 months.
2 months? 2 months he didn't have access to a phone. So I had to get creative, and I would send you care packages, and we also used snail mail, so we would like write letters to one another, and that is how we communicated for about 2 months, which is crazy, but it worked. And then another creative way that we communicated with one another is just through sending each other gifts. So an example is if we were in 2 different time zones or we were looking at long distance, you would send me flowers if I was having a bad day, or have flowers delivered, and that's just kind of a creative and fun way to communicate with one another, to kind of go the extra mile if you can't physically be there with somebody, to just kind of show that you wish you could be there. Tip number 4 is what?
Manage expectations when you are reunited. I think each time one of us has been gone for a long time,
Yeah.
there's always an adjustment period because whoever is at home has been doing things a certain way, and it's never exactly the way that the person who's gone wants them to be done.
So an example of this is I had gotten to Fort Campbell before Chuck did, about two months before he did, and I had moved into the house and moved all of our furniture in the house, and I had everything a certain way, and I was really proud of it. And then Chuck finally got to Campbell because we had just finished up about 10 months of long distance, and you started to rearrange the cabinets. Do you remember that? You were like rearranging all the dishes in the cabinets and like how I had organized things, and
They weren't organized.
I thought it was organized and I liked it. So that was kind of like a source of friction at first. I think a lot of times when you're doing long distance, you think that when you reunite it's going to be amazing, which it is, but I do think that there is like an adjustment period, kind of getting used to one another and like your schedules and routines and things of that nature. So that's tip number 4. And then what is tip number 5? Our last and final tip.
Have a goal in mind.
Yes, and what does that mean?
Just knowing that the distance is temporary and you just need to get to that date.
Yeah.
And then you're back together.
Yeah. And so for us, an example of this is last year when you were at West Point training the cadets. Your company was there for how long? 4 months. So he was there for 4 months, and I actually got to go visit him in New York City. So we kind of broke up our long distance by like 2 months. So like the day that you left, and then we made the goal in mind to be that weekend in July that I got to go visit you. And then we kind of restarted the clock from there. So we kind of looked at it at like 2-month increments instead of looking at it at like 4 months, to just make it a little bit easier on us.
Yeah.
So these are our top 5 tips for handling long distance. I would say that we've kind of become pros at this, but we hope that you guys got some great takeaways from this. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. I will also link all of my social media down in the description box to get your daily dose of inspiration. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Until next time, guys. Bye!
Bye!